But it's
But nobody's mentioned anything about that or the Bruce face. That's so
Frank. Whoa, cool.
Yeah.
good dance.
Is it good golly, Miss Molly?
I don't know where it's pointed. It's kind of pointed
Oh,
at
it's
Lex.
pointed this way. You want to twist it a little?
It's clearly a little delayed. Yeah, it's just delayed as fuck here.
Okay. Whatever. Is it coming out of here?
Should we twist the angle of the camera?
It is. There's a delay.
No, I mean like because it's like facing. Nah, I got no fucking. Oh, I just
Fine.
meant like.
Why is the standing image of the butt is in the front?
I don't know, guys. It's not usually just put the first image that is like on the downloads. Alright, I'm supposed to move it on.
Thanks, man. Okay. Air horn noise.
Oh yeah. YouTube it. Or you should just play like one of the skits.
Why is it that long?
Like the Seinfeld version.
That is the worst noise. I hate it. Welcome back, everybody, to spring semester. Great to see you all again. Thank you for coming. Sorry that we didn't meet last week. And I'm not sorry because I was in LA. And it was 75 degrees and cool. We stayed at Kevin's. Kevin was our Airbnb host. You didn't meet him.
I never did.
Cool. So, sort of like the last class, what we're going to do today is kind of discuss the different things that we viewed outside of class, and then we'll take a little break, and then we're actually going to do something in class that I guess we could call an activity, as it were, but it's something that I'm adapting from Michael Portnoy, who is a really great performance artist, friend of many people in this class. And it's an exercise that he had us do at a residency that sort of forces you to kind of think about what constitutes a sketch, a little bit about being improvisational, but also how to keep a conversation going with somebody who isn't necessarily prepared to be participating in the dialogue. So we'll do that after a brief break. And not everybody has to, we simply can't have everybody do it, but people who want to give it a whirl, I'd be glad to make that happen. So I think that what I'd like to do to start out the conversation is, in the last class we got to a point where we started to talk about the different ways, particularly in sketches, that we're viewing different types of bodies and representations of bodies in those scenarios or those contexts, and so starting to think about how are people represented in these types of sketches. Specifically, we got into a conversation a bit about, as a female viewer, how you perceive yourself represented in various types of sketches and things like that. So, I'm interested to hear what people thought about I asked you to watch on Netflix. I'm sure people have some responses to that, so I just kind of want to open that up with initial thoughts from the group about the Women Aren't Funny documentary.
I only watched like the first 25 minutes and then I turned it off in a fit of rage. So if it got better later, like cut me off.
Well, let's expand on that. So what was frustrating?
I mean, I think it was hard for me because it's like I was like so thankful that this woman, Barney, like made this documentary, but also like she was revealing that her subject position was already like really hegemonic. So it's just like how could I trust her to really bring forward like a kind of truth when she's married to this guy who like doesn't respect her, even if they hammed it up, like she's basically doing all this extra work, she opens for him, like he doesn't really support her in the ways that like seem to be very feminist to me, so I'm like, already like I don't trust you. So like all the information that you're bringing to me is through the filter of this really hegemonic thing. And I mean that's fine if you want to just describe something that's pre-existing, but for me it's also about like finding solutions, and like that was just like being battered over the head by this like terrible truth, you know?
Yeah, I think it really shifted from being like about the subject matter, like women are funny or whatever, and then like investigating that to like her internal battle with herself and her not thinking that she's a good comedian. And yeah, same thing with like trust. I didn't trust her. And it was just I don't think it was structured very well. And then at the end of the day, I don't think it really answered anything. And it was just very odd, like very, I don't know, strange and put together in a very like haphazard way.
It also, you know, so you watched the first part, and the first part is just kind of like one kind of famous stand-up comedian after another being like, "Brr, women aren't funny," you know. And really seemed to dig in and ask them to like articulate, well, why do you think that? Like, what about them isn't funny? And I think if she had kind of done that, maybe she did and I didn't notice it, but if she had done that, I think you would have she would have either kind of forced some of them to be like, well, I can't articulate it, it's just, you know, or if they could articulate it in some detailed way, like then I think viewers would have learned more about why that's such a pervasive attitude. But I feel like she didn't really dig deeper than that.
There was that scene where it was her and like Amy Schumer and somebody else in a restaurant, and some guy was confronting them. Was like, there was like a lull of like.
Oh, and he was like, "Be funny."
Yeah, he's like, "See, I gave you an opportunity and you weren't," and it's like I kind of felt like it was just completely edited to be like, just all the antagonism from all the male comedians, but never fully developed as to like why they. He's just saying no straight out. He just cut after like Chris Rock or whatever and just say no, and it's like that's done, or like even for their argument.
And also, I didn't get a good sense the way it was edited. You know, you're asking comedians, like how his whole shtick is like, I'm gonna be an awful. I don't know, like, where comedian hats when they did it, like, were they down on, like, was it part of their shtick? Were they 100% Chris Rock's? And that really surprised me. He's, you know, going for a laugh, super. Chris Rock really. Heard him talk about it. Like, opinion on more about that.
Easy way in a way of like sarcasm. Like there's that part. Oh, what I. She's a mom. Like it and like, but yeah, I'm like, I don't know anywhere.
Also,
Yeah.
like, and she just didn't like. It's just like I.
Is she like really funnier?
Saying.
Also,
I feel
like,
like that's at all.
if I were Amy, like a fucked up funnier playing into the problem the whole film, right? Carrying all face tells me that so I person interview
I read that.
showing
right.
a subject like
Yeah.
this is how I like okay
louder.
Oh, maybe like. She just kind of like undermined it by, like, oh, I'm not a good. You know, and her jabroni husband was like, no, babe, you're great. I love you all the time.
learn you can
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? I'm like
Was like trying to book her, and then it just
what?
it's asking if he dates him, planning what he's gonna do. This
Seems like before, like, oh my god, why you just said like, well, she's not that bad anymore, or whatever you said. Oh.
It's just like as a director, she gave so much screen time to like guys saying women aren't funny without delving into anything that it was so. And I watched the whole thing right before I got here, and it was just so depressing to see people that I had like grown up as like a little girl watching, and just like so disheartening.
I thought that was disingenuous too, because there are a lot of women who also think women aren't funny, just to play devil's advocate. So the fact that she was only focusing on guys, I don't know. Maybe these
No,
women,
but in the beginning
maybe
it
the
was-
women have internalized their oppression or whatever. But there are a lot of women who share that viewpoint. They might not be comedians, but just lay people.
I mean, she did interview a bunch of string of women.
Did she?
like a
Okay,
lady on the
I started
street.
off pretty early, so I don't know if she.
In
I
the
don't know if
beginning,
she
she
did.
interviews like a string of women.
Okay,
too.
sorry.
Yeah, like
but-
she had like a man on the street thing where she asked like kind of a matronly Long Island lady who was there with her two daughters, like two little blonde girls with like cornrows. Like, they just went on a carnival cruise. And it was like,
I liked the
I'm from
documentary.
Connecticut, I know from what you
I liked the documentary. I thought it was good.
Yeah.
I liked how it's kind of like this weird like series of sketches, and it's sort of like this whole idea of like us saying like, well, where's she going to? Like, it's never really, I don't think, from the beginning, kind of trying to make a statement about like making a real discovery about like chemically why are women not funny. She's just like struggling with in her own way about being funny. Like the alternate title of this movie could have been like, "Am I funny?"
Yeah.
She's figuring out like her own thing, which is why she continues to make these like bits, and she's like working on her own material in the film, and like the relationship with her husband is clearly very scripted. Like they're writing it together. Like that's not, I don't think, really necessarily exactly how it is, but I definitely was like interested in just sort of like these moments where like the whole Dane Cook thing I thought was hilarious, where like the husband's just like, "Did you fuck Dane Cook?" It's just like, God, that's such a lame thought. For something like I've had this relationship with Dane Cook is like the broiest stand-up comedian. But I thought it was like also filmed really well. Like I love how like shitty quality. Like the camera seemed terrible. Like it was just like handheld and really just bad looking.
I
Really
totally
good.
agree with you. I I didn't watch the whole thing, but I really enjoyed it as like a spoof on the Netflix like social issues documentary type thing, and like parts of it, like the part where she's like holding all that stuff, it's so like clearly scripted, like down to like very small details, like she's like crossing stuff off a list, and it's like the way she's doing it is so slow and like not real at all. It's so funny.
Oh, that,
Like,
yeah, that
I thought it was
montage.
funny,
Yeah.
yeah. I just thought it was like a joke. Like the documentary itself was like a joke as a testament that women are funny. It's like trying to like, I don't know, extrapolate from like a real world issue and make light of it the way that a lot of those documentaries do.
Well, let's say that it was a satire. If it was.
has satirical elements.
So if it was a satire, though, you can measure the success of satire and critique it by looking at it and seeing if, by employing the mechanisms of like the oppression or whatever it's critiquing, like does it produce some sort of successful comment on it or something like that. And then you have to think about the fact that let's acknowledge the privilege of the fact that most of the people in this room have likely exposure to certain parts of culture or education and things like that like you can recognize and deconstruct something like that because of your background or your peer community or things like that have you thinking certain ways, or that you recognize inconsistencies or paradoxes and things where you can be critical about it. So does a documentary like that comes out on a platform like Netflix that is for a general populace, does it only exacerbate a problem or perspective if its satire is unsuccessful or not readable?
Especially if there's nothing out there that's stronger. Like if that's the strongest thing out there for an issue that like directly affects me, like I need it to be more than what it is, or I need there to be something else.
Well, okay, so I have a 16-year-old kid who actually watched this like 2 months ago, and because we have all these discussions about women and whatever, and he's like, hey, have you he's like, hey, so have you seen this documentary, Women Aren't Funny? And I'm like, don't bait me, like, don't bait me, bro. So like, let's say, okay, 16-year-old kid, I mean, New York maybe slightly more sophisticated than the average 16-year-old, but I think general populace audience, let's say, because he hasn't been exposed to a lot of critical thinking. And he said, well, like, I think women are funnier than men, but like, I felt like she undermined her own argument because like, she made it about her, and she like I didn't find her that funny, and like, she tried to do all this like funny stuff, but I thought the jokes kind of didn't work. And so, I know like that's kind of the closest thing I've gotten to like a, dumbass perspective. In the world is still kind of a dumbass. But like, I think it did reinforce, some negative stereotypes to this, this kid.
They should have just followed Joan Rivers more. She's like
Yeah.
the funniest person ever. Like, she's just an example that she's also funnier than most comedians in the world. Like, she's so good at that.
Lindsay?
Well, what it did is just show how pervasive that idea is and how challenging it is to get above it. Like, that at the end of the day, she couldn't really prove anything because the challenge is just so strong.
And it's also that it's something that was mentioned earlier in that the people that are being interviewed are naturally performers. So if you pose a question like that to somebody, like the example is Doug Stanhope, who's like saying I'm a drunk and is like sweating as he's like drinking Prosecco or whatever. He's gonna, of course, if you ask him that, and he knows that things are gonna be cut from this film. Doug Stanhope's career isn't exactly flourishing at the moment. He's going to be in this Netflix documentary that's going to remind me that Doug Stanhope is a human being who exists. He's going to say whatever's going to get him in the movie. And so he's going to be confrontational. That's also his vibe. But I don't know. I mean, I think some of it too, I was questioning, that because the cuts were so quick when they were talking to people, is what was the actual response and conversation that happened between these people? Or was it just like was this a set-up interview or a situation where she's performing at a club, this other person is also performing, she pulls them aside for 2 seconds and says, hey, can I interview you about this thing? And they're trying to be on or like stay in character or something like that, so they respond. Like, because like the Chris Rock thing, that was a little surprising. I didn't think that he would say something like that, but
like half the time, including Chris Rock, she's like interviewing them in like the bar restaurant, and it's like just keeps going on. It's like a weird scenario to put somebody in, like almost like she didn't know anybody, but she just like stalked these kind of like locations where like comedians hung out, and just like, well, everybody's there to get riled up and like have this crazy rowdy discussion. It's like, well, obviously you're not gonna get something critical out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think relating to that, it just seems like throughout, at least as much as I saw, she didn't really assert her authority in the space. Like, she isn't like, do you know what I mean? She could do so many things stylistically, and I get the shitty, funny satire thing, like I get that, but there's like ways to do that cleverly, you know, like even just sit someone in a place that seems like authoritative or like give herself more power in that space, but to be in a noisy bar where these guys are there all the time where you can't even hear what you're doing or see what you're doing, like you're not gonna be able to assert enough authority to like get a good interview.
Yeah, I mean,
agree,
but
I would also posit that perhaps like the cutting and the editing and the whole structure of the thing is like very akin to what she experiences as a female comedian. Like that just barrage, like you're not funny. And I would also be interested in talking about that moment where she performed as a man and she's like just crying afterwards. Because for me, how I read that is her realizing that she was. I think she's funny. I think she's funny enough, right? I think that I read it as her realizing that she was funny because she was a woman. And like, oh man, I'm going through this, I'm asking all these questions, but like when I try to perform these same jokes as a dude, no response. And what does that mean? I don't know, that's how I read it. And I'd just be curious as to how
Yeah, I was a little confused by that scene. To be completely came from. I was
is going on.
it kind of ends on that note, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay,
Hey.
hi. Okay, so I think I watched the movie wrong. Maybe.
Were you upside down?
But like, I guess I got less about gender from it and more about like why people get famous and why comedians get famous and why they have like lasting careers. And like saying that women aren't funny is a way to do that. Saying like outrageous stuff and like I think some of the points that everyone's brought up about like being frustrated that like, oh, she's not doing like what she's not getting stage time. It's like, well, why isn't she getting stage time? Is it just because she's a woman or is it because she kinda isn't funny? Like, it's all about like the whole shtick of it. And I feel like that's why all the clips were so short. Like, because a lot of what we watch now is like viral clips. And like, you're not watching the entirety of something, you're never watching the entirety of the interview, you're watching the one thing that caught someone's attention. And I feel like that's what I got from it. I didn't get anything really about like gender because that's like I also didn't watch all of it. But I really went about this the wrong way. But yeah, I felt like gender, it wasn't gender as much as it was like why do some people get famous and why don't some people get famous when it comes to comedy?
I think this is like, yeah, maybe it's like weird to watch this and to like miss these cues because like now that I'm thinking about it, like I was watching it as sort of a person who is just like anthropologically minded and being like, this is an interesting issue, I'll like look at this. But I think it's actually more of a like comedian's comedy because if you think about it, she interviews so many different people and she like barely puts the names of the comedian down at the bottom of the screen. Like, how are you supposed to watch this movie if you really don't know that much about stand-up comedy or the comedy world and know all of these people who she's talking to? Like, it's just a barrage of faces, and for her, she's like, oh yeah, I know all these people. And maybe for us, we're like, oh yeah, that's Michael Ian Black. But for a lot of people, it's like totally alienating, and you're kind of left out of the experience of like knowing that this is a movie that speaks to comedians and figuring out how do you become famous? Am I funny? Like, how do I perform in this world?
And that's why I think it's interesting that they released it on Netflix because like it's your common person isn't gonna get very much from it.
Yeah.
Ever. Because they're like not like unless they're and like if they do, they'll probably have like a negative reaction to it because like, oh, this isn't like this title is completely misleading. This is frustrating. Or it's like I feel like you're right. It's like made for comedians and it should have been like done on like a smaller audience.
So like related to what you were saying about like power, it's like power and gender intersect, right? It's like who created the stand-up comedy space? You know, straight men. So it's like of course entering in with a different subject position at a disadvantage. To even enter the space but then to also bond in the space, to spend time in the space enough so that you can have a career, that's not possible. So it's like the entire structure, they're all like, oh yeah, it's like women don't hang out here. It's like, no shit, they don't hang out here. You know what I mean? So it's just like to think about like what it means to have a career as a comedian automatically is to do a gendered reading on that. Like I think you can't separate those two things.
I didn't find that any of the men were funny either. In her interviewing everyone gave a very superficial reason why women weren't funny. Like maybe she did ask them more, but no one had a good reason, and no one was funny in their reason of saying it. It was just repeating. So I felt Patreon because it's a stupid issue. I mean, when you get down to it, like, it's a dumb concept that really has no basis in anything whatsoever except for people's perceptions, these white men that kind of run everything. You look at a deeper anthropological women's study kind of background, and it's very serious. It's much more in depth, but I don't feel like that's what she was going through. I felt it was more to point out the stupidity of the whole thing. And I think for me, part of it was, sorry, I just spit, that there were probably really funny moments from both genders, but she didn't put any of that in whatsoever, even with her husband continuously interrupting and trying to get attention. Even that, like, his bits weren't funny, they weren't interesting. It was just an annoyance of him.
Right,
Look
but
at
that's
me,
like,
look at me.
that's like a big exception, right? If the exception is, oh, it's a dumb concept except for the straight white men who run the whole space, so if you want to try and have a career, you can't. That's a huge exception. Like, that's a real issue, especially for
No,
kids.
it's not a real issue, but I mean the basis of it is that it's just a dumb concept to have in your head. That's what I mean. I mean, it is a real issue. I think she brought that up with her husband trying to get her these gigs and he couldn't, and them interviewing all the people that, I mean, that all the people that are running these shows are women, and they're the ones not booking other women with this excuse. And I've heard other interviews about that, and for the Chris Rock thing, I think he has actually said there should be more women in comedy since that movie. So again, it's just like the clip that they showed. So it is very much a very real issue that doesn't impact a lot of people how we view society when we explore communities. They comment on how we view ourselves, they bring up different issues, and if there's a large part of like half the population that's not being represented, that is also a very, very big issue. But the whole basis of that issue is stupid. I mean, it's just dumb. Like, women aren't funny. I don't understand because we have there's no basis in that idea at all, except they haven't been given more opportunities to be funny. I mean, it's like saying there's no funny Asian people, there's no funny Indian people, there's no funny black people, no funny Hispanic people. None of those people are really represented as much either. But it's, you know, this is one particular issue that, again, is dumb. I mean, it's a dumb thing that would even be said.
I think it was a shame she didn't address, I think Christopher Hitchens might have started the conversation a few years earlier with this quote as to Darwinian fantasy he set up as to why women don't have to be funny, because for them there's no biological advantage in charm and their potential mate. Which is it's a fantasy set up. I think Tina Fey might have addressed it once in writing, but in this documentary she didn't cover, which, you know, the possibilities as to why that is a fallacy. You know, instead of just focusing on the industry of comedy, which is arguably not full of terribly funny people, male or female, so it's kind of like industry more than the humor concept.
I thought funny. I mean, women, there's one, and she said, well, we were roasting, like negative to be a woman and everything, looking into, well, yeah, like how, you know, different gendered expectations, how people can, like, isn't a fun joke. You know,
Oh boy.
he was like, you know, like even like, right? You know, that's why I was never. And I was like that. Actually, kind of. This lady takes it. And does something kind of nice with that. And those are two kind of like little shining moments that I kind of dug.
But that's also like, sorry.
Oh.
That's a shift.
Yeah, Yeah, that's her shtick. Is like, let me take the hegemony and like use it to my advantage and enter the space like all broed out. And I'm like, that's nice. Like, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
She really made angry the was it someone who produced the Aristocrats, because she went through a lengthy description of like being raped by this person.
Oh no, it was someone else who was in it.
In
It
it,
was- yeah,
someone else was in it.
Girl.
Okay, yeah, and like that made
She talks about his casting couch in it. It's like a whole thing that she has as this like bit. But yeah, she got in trouble for her.
But I think something that, as people are sort of talking about this, and I'm thinking, I will admit, I assigned this before I'd watched it. I just it came out, it was like the end of class last week, I was like, oh, we should obviously view this. I had no idea what we were in for. But the interesting thing that I found watching it was that it does speak to, it has a lot to do with mobility within that community and like the way that certain people have to behave or act in order to achieve some type of success or notoriety. And one example being that like let's objectively zoom out and get rid of political correctness. Does Sarah Silverman want there to be more successful, funny female comedians? Probably not. Like,
Seriously.
objectively, financially, economically, like in a super libertarian sense, Sarah Silverman is probably pleased as shit that she's funnier than all of these other women.
Contrast that with Bamford, who still runs like a funny women comedian list on her
Right.
website with links to everyone's site.
But the other thing about that too is I'm thinking about, and so of course, why wouldn't those men respond in that capacity? Because why would you, especially if you're sort of, a lot of the people who are interviewed are successful stand-up comedians in that sense, but they don't have a sitcom. They don't have like a movie career. They don't have these other things. So why the hell would they want to open it up? And like a really, as we're talking here, I'm thinking of this like my friend and I at the LA Art Book Fair had this moment where we felt really shitty about something that we were really excited about, which was that at the LA Art Book Fair, the bathrooms are not gender neutral. Versus PS1 in New York. And he came back in the bathroom, he's like, how fucking awesome is it that there's a men's room and a women's room? He's like, it took me 2 seconds to take a piss. And I was like, yeah, oh, no. But that's like a microcosmic example. Like, of course those guys are like that. Like, why would they want it to be more difficult for them when it's already an insanely difficult industry? I'm not pardoning them. I'm just saying that those it simply illuminates, like, matter-of-factly, like, of course they're going to respond like that. Like, why the hell would they want more competition when they've got all of this competition of people who look exactly like them? God forbid somebody come along who doesn't look like them that also is more noticeable. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of, that's what was fascinating about it for me, even though I don't know how I feel about the documentary at large or its quality or whatever, was seeing made manifest the same things that happen in the art world, the same things that happen in business and every other industry. Like, of course people parrot these responses because like it is highly beneficial to them. It's the same thing with, oh my God, what's the other woman's name? Is, well, women aren't funny, except for me, I'm the one funny woman. Which is like,
Chelsea Peretti.
yeah, which is funny, but like in a deep-seated like psychological, like let's look at that, like that's fucked up. Like, but is the reality of how a successful female stand-up comedian probably has to kind of like put their armor on to be like, yeah, no, most girls aren't funny except for me, and that's why I'm successful.
Do you know the movie Who's the Caboose?
No, but that's a really cute title.
It's like, it's
Who's the
early,
Caboose?
It's by
There's a
Sarah
moose.
Silverman. Like it's a movie that Sarah Silverman did like a while ago. That's like a fictionalized version of her and like her. I think it's like her and her boyfriend at the time going around like East Village comedy scene, and then her trying to get into like the what's the pilot season over in like Hollywood, and it's all scripted, but it's like it was just interesting. I was thinking about it.
Who's the Caboose?
In contrast,
I'm just gonna.
yeah.
I'm gonna.
It's like and it's like it's funny.
I'll steal that on the internet for everyone.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes. What's up, Eric?
Are women funnier to other women and men, or men to other men. Are like
This
gay
is an
men.
essentializing discussion. You don't essentialize human to any gender. No.
I've never been a man, so I don't know.
Doesn't have to do with audience, like who's funny to
Yeah,
show.
this is this.
Yeah.
Like it all has to do with audience.
I don't know, I think Louis C.K. is pretty funny and I'm not a man. So
You have red hair.
No, I know, I'm not.
But doesn't Louis C.K. like also go towards like people who've been divorced, people who have kids and who have been or single parents and like know that shit happens, you know?
Right, so I'm saying
He's got a big
comedians are
market share.
relatable, essentially.
absolutely.
So it's like you relate to your audience. So women maybe were dealing with audiences in the beginning when men were saying women were funny, that women were dealing with audiences that didn't want to see women, didn't want to see women. So like if as the audience changes for comedy, doesn't that also like tilt the balance of who thinks of like, because I'm basically saying I don't think women are funnier than men or men are funnier than women. I think it's like how you can relate to your audience. So yeah, so basically saying like in the 50s when you were making wife jokes is because the audience was like primarily men are just like dragging their wives along to comedy shows.
That's not true.
Well, that's
Yeah.
actually
That's
like
never been
really-
true. Everyone fucking watches comedy. It's just the
Yeah.
guys assume that everyone is their audience.
And I want to talk for a second about the expensive wife, like the dumb wife, that joke, that trope,
Yeah.
starts showing up in the United States in the sort of teens and 20s, right around the market revolution. Right? When the market revolution is happening, what's happening is you're divorcing the workplace of money, Mantown, from the moral economy, Ladyville. And I'm probably out on a limb here. But in essence, what that meant is that the work that women did became invisible, right?
Yeah.
Became moral stuff. Prior to that, it all, if you're working on a farm, everybody works or everybody dies. Right? And actually it was women who did most of the work in, say, colonial New England. Women were doing most of the work that had money attached to it, right? Sort of most of the healthcare was provided by women. Herb gardens were tended by women. Men were in this kind of like bro sharing economy where it's like, work for me for a couple hours, I'm gonna help you later. But there were no women were doing the math, right? That changes, and you need an ideology that makes that make sense. And so you look, and jokes about women overspending on hats, right? That's the classic, bad 1940s, radio sitcom joke, right? He yells at her for buying a new hat. She gets upset. He says, "Oh, what can I do to make it better?" She says, "Well, a new hat." It's not funny. It's really funny when George Burns and Gracie Allen does it because she sort of subverts everything.
Well, I think one
good.
thing
Okay, but anyway, the last thing to say is so there's a political significance to that, right? I mean, I'm not saying that was intended, but there's a big political significance in what we find funny, and it didn't make sense. Profligate women, or sort of women that overspent, wasn't funny in 1790, but it was by 1830 and 1840 because now men handled money and women did not, and men had something to sort of worry about and complain about to women that overspent.
And there's also countless numbers of examples of that time period, like Lucille Ball. Everyone watched I Was Lucy, men, women, children. These are American standards, kind of. And even
Yeah,
Joe
Lucy's on the cover of the first issue of TV
Tracy
Guide.
Ullman.
But
That's
I mean,
not
those
what-
reinforce though the point that the audience
That's what
when you understand
you're
the context of the audience,
reinforcing
right?
the point that I'm making, which is that the audience changes and society changes. We find different things funny.
Well, I think that
Well,
one thing
no,
that's
but
really
I'm
doesn't
interested in
really
the process
I find
by that.
Louis C.K. funny because he's self-deprecating, not because he's a 40-year-old man. I find a woman funny because I'm a gay man and I identify more with women. I don't find just a straight man saying dumb jokes about his wife to be funny. So I'm saying as an audience member looking at a comedian, that would be the way I would approach that. So if there are more people like me in the world, which I am, whatever, I don't know if there are, more and more people who liked the type of comedy I liked would be more of those comedians would be more famous and more people would consider them funny. So if there's more women comedians and more women watching comedy, more women participate in comedy, then all of a sudden, like, you know, women dominate comedy, which I think is actually going to happen. So.
Well, I don't
But
think the
this-
audience has ever actually changed. I
Right.
think that the audience has been static the whole time, and that basically.
Static?
Well, like I think that basically, like, I don't know. I feel like one of the reasons that comedy has kind of evolved over time is that I think it's been more about comedians analyzing their audiences and sort of thinking about like the diversity of their audiences and how they can appeal to more people. Like, for example, people actively trying to be like a little more quote unquote politically correct at their shows. Like, there's a lot of comedians now who kind of talk about like they joke about people who are assholes. Like, isn't it terrible that people are racist or sexist? Like Moshe Kasher, like his big thing is kind of like just being an asshole to people who are assholes. Or like, I don't know, really thinking about how people are going to take your jokes. Like the last comedy show I went to was really shitty because it was like mostly just dudes joking about how awesome it is to fuck teachers in high school. Like, oh, like you're so well respected if you're a dude fucking a teacher in high school. And I was like, wait a minute, do you even understand like how that is if you flip the script? Like, if you fuck a teacher and you're a girl, you're a social pariah. Like, it's just sort of like trying to be able to look at the scope of a joke and see how you can apply it to everyone and not assume that everyone's going to take it the same way. And not thinking, oh, I'm being politically correct, just being more accepting of who might be in your audience.
I also just like what you were saying about like audiences being static. Like, I mean, I see what you're getting at, and I like it's basically like in the way that a government doesn't represent, like who's in front of the microphone doesn't represent who's watching that.
Exactly.
Like 41% of like the video game audience is women. Like there's a shitload of women playing video games, and it's like deeply violently misogynistic material because they assume that the audience is dudes. So it's like, oh, there's all these dude comedians, so it must be a dude audience. It's like, no, women have always been there. They just haven't seen themselves reflected until more recently.
Yeah, I thought that the documentary was kind of like an interesting sort of look into that, because there is like sort of a subculture of comedy that's like boozy dudes like talking about like hooking up and like drinking a lot, like sort of Adam Carolla stuff. But he says he's never read a book before, which I thought was crazy. But yeah, I thought it was interesting just to put like a camera in front of these people and like just hear them actually say like, yeah, like, you know, there's nothing funnier than like dudes shooting the breeze. Like, and like when me and my white friends get together, like that's the funniest thing. That's where real comedy's made. Yeah, I just thought it was interesting to just hear these people talk, even though Bonnie McFarlane maybe wasn't the best person to make the documentary.
Yeah, where was Tina Fey?
Disagree on that.
She probably wouldn't be in it.
Tina Fey was like nowhere to be found, and she did an entire episode on like women funny, not funny in 30 Rock with
Yeah.
Tracy Morgan, which was more effective in 22 minutes discussing funny, not funny than this hour and 20-minute movie.
Well, can we round? I don't want to by any means shut down this portion of the conversation, but shifting a little bit away just from specifically this documentary, there was other material as well that we viewed in relationship to this, and something about audience and understanding your audience. Part of the reason that one of the things that I asked people to watch Grotesco was because.
Okay, so what was that?
What do you mean?
Like,
what do you mean?
Literally, what was it? Because it switches between like being in Swedish, being in like mock English, and like. So I don't like. Who is actually supposed to be watching it? And like people watching it know English enough to understand that they're not actually speaking English. And like, is that what? I don't. It's just.
I have a very limited understanding of the context, but I want more people to respond before
I mean, I think part of it is like in almost any other culture, you're bombarded by American culture.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you can't. Next door, but like you can no longer do a PhD in Finnish. You have to do it in English or Russian, but fuck that. That's politically do that thing.
Yeah.
So. You know, so they're bombarded by the English language, they're bombarded by English media, or English language, mostly American media, And, right, I think they can get a John Grisham joke, you know.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think it's hard for sort of an American audience to understand that because we're not bombarded by anything other than our own navel-gazing bullshit.
Well, a lot of those smaller countries too, they don't translate foreign media, they just do subtitles. So that's why their English can be really good. I've asked people who have learned in Sweden why their English is so good. And that's the reason they told me, is that they hear the American accents, where other countries like France and Germany don't because they translate it into their language. So I think they could air that on Swedish TV and everyone would understand it without a problem.
Also, Scandinavian countries, their common language is English at this point. Finns don't speak Swedish, Swedes don't speak Finnish, Norwegians speak Norwegian, like, and everybody speaks English. So, I thought that the translation of like Southern English, it would be funny if it was made by an American sketch, like comedy troupe or whatever, like that. I mean, really, it's kind of. It's like, to me it sort of like tickled my absurdist funny bone because it's like, oh, right, like that is an amazing interpretation of like what those sounds could be. If you're not familiar with that accent or you haven't spent a lot of time in the South. I just skipped the Swedish parts because I can't speak Swedish.
So good.
They're
Dr. Internet.
It's amazing. So good.
Was the trend CD?
Oh my god.
That was so
on
the trend CD.
No, I was really impressed. Like that was a picture. Like that was a perfect send-up of those tropes. I mean, those. I was a lawyer in Louisiana for 5 years, so I was like, hey. Like, I was amazed at how spot on they nailed those tropes. Like that's exactly what a lot of those movies sound like, and they're kind of interchangeable. And there's always this happens, and then the judge says this, and then
The writing though is so insane because obviously those people speak completely articulate English, like all of the actors.
Yeah.
But the rewriting of English into like what becomes a parody of it, to the, like when the bald guy keeps yelling "erection, you're under." when he talks to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, and he says, "Why are we at home with our mammals watching baseball?" It's just like
the county state of Mississippi, Alabama.
Or when they go to the old man who's like the sage and he's sitting there and they're talking to him and he goes, "Do you like branches?" he goes, "Don't mind him." And then he goes, "Bet you don't." And I was like, is that like a homophobic, is that like a weird, I don't know what that means. Do you like branches? Don't mind him. Bet you don't. But it's so what I love about Grotesco, and most of it's in Swedish, very little of it is in English, but that episode in particular is just insane because it's like taking a parody and writing it 10 times harder. That's why it's super fantastic. And also just Jesus Christ, the blackface thing is out of control in that.
I just want to hear Morgan Freeman as.
Well, they're using, they're seeing that as this, they're shoving that in an American audience's face. You did this, you did blackface, we're doing a parody of what you did for years. Sorry y'all don't do that for the last 20. But
well, I don't know if I read it so much as a parody of what America is because they are also very crazy fucking racist. And that's totally okay in that thing. And that might be the least parody part of it all.
I thought that part was really regrettable. I think it's maybe just different in Sweden, the idea of blackface and sort of the weight it carries.
Yeah, it's kind of completely okay with them. It's still in almost any major publication will publish a political cartoon with black people and watermelons and things like that.
Yeah.
Do you think though that the people that write that show don't know that?
No, but
they probably do, but it's
of weight, and it's also how to do it intelligently and deconstructive. Do you know what I mean? To be ha ha, fuck you. It's
I don't think that they did that tastefully in the sense of the show, but it's just it's hard to it's when you know what the country or the continent kind of is it's kind of hard to see that as a parody.
Well, it's
at
also
all.
ultimate white privilege. Like,
Yeah,
you don't
exactly.
have that
Like we
problem
can
in
make fun of
Sweden,
ourselves for being so racist.
But
you
don't you
know?
think because it's a parody of Southern courtroom dramas and junction that is ultimate? They're very aware of that. It's
Oh,
not like
yeah.
this is set in New York City and they just got some guy to put on blackface. Like this is like making fun of Alabama, Mississippi South. So they're like they are very clearly, parodying and making fun of our own history of racial comedy.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I just think they could have done it without blackface. Like I don't think it added anything because at the end they make like a really funny race joke. Like it ends like with I think a really funny pointed joke. But
Well, it's also just like, who's your audience? Like, if you think that shit's okay, then you're assuming a white audience. And I just think that's not okay. You know?
I think if they meant to push it in our face or on mainstream blackface, it would have been more over the top than it was. It was kind of mild blackface, but I felt they weren't really addressing that historical context as much. I'm sure they're aware of it, but I think it was just like, oh, it's okay, we're only, it's a Swedish audience, we'll just put that person blackface, not with black actors, and it's true.
Yeah, I think it was maybe even their last thought. Like maybe for us it was our first like striking thing, but for them it was like, oh yeah, obviously blackface dude. Yeah.
yeah, I kind of felt like that. Yeah, kind of felt like just an extra joke.
Yeah, exactly. Like, super cheap.
I think what I responded to that went like the one degree further is when they show the picture of his sister.
Oh yeah.
And it's him dressed up as his sister. It's like that's where I started laughing really hard, even though at first I was taken aback by like the blackface guy in court. And then when they show a picture of his sister and it's him dressed in drag in the same blackface, that's where I was kind of like, I think they know what they're doing. But my opinion of it doesn't have to be anybody else's naturally. But I don't know.
I'm trying to think of like if I showed this to my dad who lives in El Salvador and just knows American through TV, he'd probably laugh and go, haha, yeah, Americans are racist. You're right.
I mean, I guess that's the question of like, I don't think that we'll come to like a specific agreement on it, but like I've watched this so many times that I remember the first time that I saw it, that kind of being like, oh, Jesus Christ. But then the more times that I've watched it, I've kind of been like, I'm convinced that this is like a hypercritical thing, but that doesn't, I also want it to be a hypercritical thing. Like,
Yeah,
because I
that's
enjoy it so much, I really want it to be.
White guilt.
What is white guilt?
I think that's what I think it was more criticism of us, because I have a black friend who's from Sweden, like she's half black, and I was talking to her, I was like, have you ever experienced, or how's the racial tension there? She's the only black person in her village, and in 23 years she said she's never experienced anything, like they consider her as sweet, and I was blown away by that. She said there was one time in third grade, her like darky or something, but she had never experienced any other type of racial trauma. So I mean, I've never been to Sweden, I don't know, but those, I mean, that's certainly not the case here. No black person would say that in the U.S. So.
What about the other? Let me see, because I want to take a break in about 15, but I'd be interested in hearing about people's responses to the other clips too. I know the Tracy Morgan thing is not a sketch, but it becomes a sketch taken. That movie's so bad, totally awesome. It's like, I don't mean in like a cool, like let's ironically watch it. It sucks. It's a shitty fucking movie. But somebody went to the trouble of cutting together everything that Tracy Morgan did, including all the outtakes, and I don't know.
Probably Tracy Morgan.
Thanks for joining us, Steve.
No problem. Me up behind your ear there,
I guess because of the women aren't funny thing, I was like on like sexism hyper alert. So it's just funny that both the Tracy Morgan and the Chris Rock have these like deeply sexist moments in it, and I'm like, I know you're like buying into a certain idea of what white people think black culture is like, but it was still like, like, I just wanted there to be like a feminist point of reprieve in like all of the videos that accompanied that like very charged documentary. I don't know.
Was it funny though?
Sometimes it was funny.
No, I mean, I think that's, I'm asking you that not to be antagonistic, but because like, we're talking critically about all these things, and we all have a perspective where we can take that thing apart, but that's the sort of weird thing that I'm interested in is, how do you watch something and like, because yeah, like when I first saw this in 2005, or whenever the movie came out or something like that, living in Arizona, like, it didn't occur to me when it was like, women want to be talked to and to compliment their butt and their boobs or something, and I was just like, they don't. But now I'm just like, that is a very violent form of social interaction, and I don't think you should do that. But like, that's a decade of like me being a grown up. You know what I
also
mean?
look at it formally and be like, he's a fucking amazing improviser, you know, and like there's a lot of clever shit going on with like this sort of just like being like, this is how you think black people are. I'm just gonna push it to the limit and do it 100 different ways until you like can't think anymore. Like that's amazing. But it's still like when something goes unquestioned, this is just my personal preference, but like highlight everything because it's intersectional, right? So when something goes deeply unquestioned, it just, I can't go all the way, even though it's like really funny. I'm just like, I have to take a step back from it.
Look at that guy who's acting with should get an Oscar. He doesn't laugh once.
In every outtake, he's ever just like, what?
There's
just
one.
like one where
There's one.
Like, couldn't.
Most of them I think are just like cut so you don't get his reaction, but like there's a point where you get him like dropping something and be like,
But when they're at the mall, he's doing the dance. He's like, this is a dance called Potato Chip because there's a guy with black potato chip. And he's just like, okay, yeah, potato chip dance. Like he never laughs. That's
Well,
amazing.
like the clap. My favorite thing from that whole clip was like the moment where he said like the girl in the yellow. I'll separate your boobs on the sides on a thing of razor blades and there's a lizard at the end. And then everyone's just like. He's like, I'll just be normal. And he was like, I'll do a normal one. But it was just like he lives. That really showed me like he lives in this heightened like world where he can just create this shit out of thin air, and he's like, okay, I'll have to slow it down for you a little bit.
I'm willing to believe the reaction shots, like him laughing at his own thing or other people laughing, were cut out skillfully. They just wanted to give you the work without the reaction.
Did you guys have any responses to other stuff too that we viewed? There was the Wheels Ontario, Chloe Wise showed me that she's Canadian. So.
Sean, my only note for that was fuck Canadians and make fun of Sean's accent.
Oh, sure. That sounds about right.
Really bumming it.
No, that was Ontario.
I feel like that's changing from the Wheels Ontario, but just I was thinking about the Chris Rock video.
Yeah.
Like, I was like the Tracy Morgan video. It's like, okay, you're making fun of how white people perceive black people, but the Chris Rock one seemed more hegemonic. Of just like why are you berating? I don't know. I'm like, this is confusing for me. But like the entire brand of like how that humor was structured, like don't do obnoxious shit, so police won't beat you up. I was like, even if this is satire, like it's really confusing and like upsetting for me to watch that.
No, that
You're
shit's
playing into the
funny.
hands.
That
Yeah.
shit's funny as
Okay.
fuck. I find that shit funny because that's how I navigate. It's like, you know, that's what I think. Like, you shouldn't have done that, dog.
Is that?
Of course, it's problematic, but it is how like I'll speak for myself. It is how I navigate and how I think. So
But isn't that also from 2001?
Five, I think.
2005.
Five, yeah. It's still, or no, 2000. Yeah, 2000.
But it got a whole new lease on life.
Right now he wouldn't do that video. You know, in 2000 it was really, I laughed, I thought it was hilarious, but
Why
I
would they
think,
do that now?
because of all the people recently shot and killed. I mean, did that with them having
All the
that-
people recently shot who actually made the news, as opposed to
Right, as I said, it's not
all the
recent,
people
it's
that
not-
shot.
Yeah, exactly, but I mean, it's in the news right now, where then it wasn't, you know, every month we weren't getting a different story of a different innocent person or not, whatever, a different person being shot. And so it's, I
But
don't
that's
think
post
those.
Rodney King, that video. I mean,
Yeah.
the references
Yeah.
Rodney King in that. So it's like, it's still, and that was a real flashpoint in the United
Mhm.
States.
Yeah.
So like, that is, you know, it is not exactly the same as right now, but it was still like pretty much in our consciousness, I think, as a country. Like that wasn't,
It
you
was
know.
like four or 5 years after the Bronx. That happened in
happened in 92, I think.
It's like 8 years.
But I
it
think
was
it's-
totally resurrected for right now. I was seeing it on YouTube, like that video consistently after Eric Garner and all that. People were bringing it right back like it was right now.
But like, did anybody else look at the comments, which you should never ever. Right. And this is something that, like, to come back to the question of like audience and what you were saying about stuff being kind of chopped up and pulled out of its original context. Like, it made me a lot more uncomfortable than it would have in the context of a show in 2000,
right.
where you know, where
Right.
bad people can't then sort of pull it
Yeah, talk about it in the court.
and use it as some kind of fucked up dilemma. You know, because there was a lot of like, you know, people were directly referencing Ferguson and stuff and be like, yeah, well, you know, if you steal cigars and blah blah blah, then you might get murdered, you know, and the way that sort of, you know, I'm sure Chris Rock would not be psyched about that utility of it. Like, I think to some extent it felt to me like he was speaking primarily to like a black audience with this particular sketch that is looking to laugh at something that is entirely true and entirely fucked up about, as you said, like how you have to navigate on a day, you know, on a day-to-day basis, and to have it kind of yanked out of that is something that he wouldn't have had to think about doing, you know, a show at that, you know, in 2000, but now. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I would say being afraid to do a similar sketch. A friend of mine said, I'm not doing it. To do a sketch like that today, or to be afraid to do a sketch like that today, would be to support this narrative that you're talking about. You know what I mean? And
I mean, I guess I wasn't saying like not
No,
do
no,
it,
I
but
know,
I think
that's
that,
my-
I think
that's
he would
my
do it differently.
Well, I mean, for me, there's just a difference with any kind of dynamic like that in a video, like the difference between describing something and trying to evolve something and creating a possibility. Like, he's describing a true thing. And I think people who experience that are like, haha, true, sad, you know what I mean? But like, I don't know, at least when I make my own work, I try to like be like, okay, let's create a new possibility, or let's put a wink in there, like let's find a new way out, or like transmit some knowledge that can put us in a new place. And so to see something just like,
I mean, also it's probably way out is the fact that he had a show. He, you know, he is the voice for like a lot of the issues that wouldn't have gotten raised anywhere. So I guess he didn't really have to think about it in that sort of sense.
Yeah, and it's also just like, what could you get through at that time?
Yeah, it's also like what was the actual like political activity like surrounding to try to move past that. There was really none.
I think the more that I think about it, like what you're saying is the reason it works, or the reason I'm still thinking about it, is because of everything that's left unsaid. Right? It's the negative space.
Yeah, and I guess that also depends on who your audience is, because like a bunch of white people are not going to get that negative space. Yeah.
But that's the subtext of it, though, that's really brilliant, right? Is that this is that if you watch, but if you watch some hyper, like, so much sketch comedy is obscenely topical in like its turnaround time. Like, let's look at SNL, like it has to be something that just happened in the news this week. This is an example of something that like, it's been a decade and a half, and you watch this and like the subtext of what Chris Rock is saying is basically like, this is the talk that parents have with their kids. Still, you know? And that's like why I thought it was kind of fascinating to look at now, because as I'm watching it, I'm like laughing, and then part of me is going, God, Chris Rock, why won't you say something more radical? But then at the same time, I'm like, oh, actually what you're saying is hyper fucking radical, because you're playing this talking head of the person that's like, you shouldn't have done that, which highlights to me the fucked up context that causes someone to actually have to think like, in your car, which is your personal space, you shouldn't be allowed to listen to loud music.
Like,
that you want
unless
to
you have a
listen
white
to.
friend.
Yeah. But I mean, there's that great, from Killing 'Em Softly, like the Dave Chappelle stand-up thing where he's talking about, have you guys ever heard that, where he's talking about Chip?
Yeah.
His buddy Chip, like his white buddy Chip, and just like they'll do the most if Chip's in the car, like they'll do whatever they want. And like there's one part where they like get pulled over by the police and they're like smoking a joint, and the cop is like, the cop comes up to the window, taps on it, and Chip's driving, and like rolls it down, and he's like, license and registration. And Chip's like, officer, I gotta be honest, I'm a little high. I'm just trying to get to 3rd Street. And the cop goes, take it easy. You're on 3rd Street. And he's like, Chip like turns the music up when the cop walks up, and it's just like, like whatever. But it's, and that Killing 'Em Softly is like a little bit old, but it's insane to think like, you know, we have a consciousness that thinks like, oh, these social issues are aware, but like the architecture of the superstructure has not shifted fucking slightly. Yeah. Like that's what's kind of insane about this particular clip and why I wanted to watch that. Maybe quick before we take a break, maybe we can chat about The State, Louis and the Last Supper. I don't know. It's stupid? Why?
It's stupid.
Yeah, it's fucking dumb as shit. It's like their brand. They're like Reno 911. They're like all the Michael Ian Black and all these other things like that. I don't know. Does that hold up at all? When was that from? 94? It's 20 years old. Is it funny? Not funny?
The joke from the Gallagher thing, the watermelon smashing guy, is that name? Like
That's Gallagher, yeah.
What are the, I don't know, American, Gallagher.
What about Gallagher?
Yeah, but it's the idea of like these old, like these dudes that would just do one thing over and over and be like, that's so funny.
No,
it was just like making fun of that.
It was more about like having catchphrases in sketches, I think. Like like you'd have the guy who would say like, you build the whole sketch about the guy saying one line.
Thank you very much.
It's like, what you talking about, Willis?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so that like there was then the character who the only thing he said was his catchphrase, and everyone was so excited to see him, and they're like, maybe they're making fun of their network and the people who are trying to get them to like write these sketches, but
Saturday Night Live
Since did it better.
Yeah.
catchphrase characters, like from Two Wild and Crazy Guys to Penelope's kind of one of those. Like
yeah, well, Penelope's
Gilly.
totally one of those, and then like she reoccurs and does that thing over and over again. And it's just like, it's just a format of like sketch comedy that they were making fun of, I think.
Well, he shows up at the fucking Last
Like
Supper.
he shows up at the Last Supper and then gets
He
like
travels
Jesus
time.
to be like, no, like that's me. Go crucify him. I'm not gonna die for all of your sins anymore. It's gonna be the guy who puts his balls in.
I know everyone's like it's a dumb sketch, but I thought it was. I loved how it begins because I was like, how many times have we looked at that painting and no,
yeah,
it's never like, what the fuck are they talking about? Jesus is talking.
Also, just
Jesus is talking.
Like
What is that?
the set as a the set and costumes as a reproduction of the Last Supper, like the way that they made the table with those like stupid fucking idiotic legs is just like great. I mean, it's stupid as shit, but it's well put together.
Yeah, like even like Judas is always holding the bag of money when he's talking.
They
Just
make
like little
Judas
shit like that
Shylock,
makes it kind of
basically.
cool.
They make Judas like Shylock, which is also this other funny, weird, embedded joke.
I love they had Jesus say oy vey. Like,
And also Jesus looks like Jesus. Like you know what I mean? He looks so deeply like every Jesus painting ever. Well, that's what I mean. Like, it's like,
so that actor plays the teacher in Wales, Ontario.
Yeah. Don't roll in
Oh.
here like you're. What's his name of the Calgary
100
Flames?
kilometers an
100
hour.
kilometers per hour.
That's not John Gallagher. The guy who plays Jesus is the one of the cops on Reno 911.
Yeah.
Tom Lennon.
Yeah. He's brilliant. Yeah. He's very funny. Well, why don't we let's take a 10-minute break so people can use the restroom, go have a cigarette, do whatever we need to do, and then we're going to do an activity.
but also I'm like 7 about Wales, Ontario. I like hijacked that. I was like,
a long time ago, and I was like, what do you think of this? And I was like, this makes me and I was like, wait, really? And I was like, you mean Inuit? Because that, that is. You know, like the accents, like the whole thing. And I was like, oh, no. Like, I'm Toronto. You don't get to be fucking, no.
It's also brilliant that like they do this entire thing in this disabled school, but the joke is not at all about ableism. And that was so.
It's also Degrassi. Like,
yeah, that's what
Degrassi is like Drake is in a wheelchair and no one else is. So it's like the inverse of that, where like the kid shows up in school and everyone else is disabled. And he's just like, and they're shitting on him. I say her name is Legs. Legs. It's so nice.
I was like shocked when I was watching this.
I'm getting a new one. No worries. I'll have copies for everybody to see. Thank you.
great.
I
It should have come
know.
as no surprise. Good of you to join us, Steve. I mean, I told you I was going to. But it's true. I set myself up in a strange place, like right behind you.
Like
By the
the
way,
devil on my shoulder.
There you go. I've had lots of devils on my shoulder because I can't drink anymore. Sure, you can have a drink. Sure, you can have a drink. No, I can't drink. What was I going to say?
Can it power itself off USB? You can power off USB.
Older one can power off the computer, but not.
Not up, yeah.
Yeah, it needs like a signal. Can we get the extension cord out from under you?
Sure. Here.
So we have.
What is it? A 3.5 or?
No, just one A extension cord.
Oh, yeah.
I also like want to. I've been getting this pretty good.
Sweet dick. You got a sweet dick.
Photo meeting messages. You can handle anything, or are you good?
Always and never. I appreciate your mutually exclusive options.
Your option binary.
You gonna handle anything, or are you good? Both and neither.
Is this Dre?
Damn it. Fucking yeah.
Fucking yeah.
I'm moving there August.
Yeah.
He might.
I believe it's warmer.
Wave on both sides. Menu. 4-channel, 2-channel.
Check, check. Hey, it's a check-in time. Yeah. So when did you get back?
Tomorrow afternoon.
Oh, fuck you.
Yeah. Well, I was
By the way, if I had been here on time, I would have said something about Swedish racism.
Yeah, we talked about it.
No, I was coming in just when you were, but I didn't want to like jump on it. But the Swedish aren't racist, but American blacks, they don't have American blacks, they're racist about Bosnians and all the people they've imported, you know, in part of their. It's totally Did you guys know you were in with camouflage colors here? You guys planned all this? You too? Mr. Top Knot? Mr. Bottom Knot?
It's like so creating out.
So
I was just like, I was just really happy that like work was okay with not coming yet.
they brought it
Yeah, it's like always kind of like I've been in club whenever it's like yeah, it's like so I was trying to like not talk to anybody.
Still happening? Citibank, but we're not going to do John Funny because it's too obvious because there's only like 3 people that actually vote. I'm worried about whether this oh, that's good. I'm running a car. Boom. This means it's just as hard. Yep. Okay. Health insurance from the car. Okay, everybody, let's bring you back in.
been a minute. Word. LA. Word. How was it? Moving in August. Hands down. I want to hear the story.
Okay. Calm down. Calm down. Bring it back in. Okay, so what we're going to do right now, I would love if a few people want to do this too, is, like I said earlier, something that Michael Portnoy had us do as an exercise. You have 3 minutes in time total. We're going to call Citibank, and Citibank can't hang up on you. It's one of the rules on the customer service, so they're not allowed to terminate a call. However, the call that you make will be terminated after 3 minutes. You're going to engage the person that's on the other end of Citibank. You may not be antagonistic, you may not be rude, you may not insult them, you're not trying to get a rise out of them, you're trying to keep someone in conversation in a nonsensical loop for 3 minutes. It can be sensical in the sense that the conversation is sensible, or it means something, or whatever, but what they're going to try to do is as soon as you get on, they're going to ask for your name. You're going to give your first and your last name, then they're going to ask what your account number is to try to open and pull up your account. So you have to try to delay that as much as possible while maintaining a conversation with the person. So you sort of think up a scenario, and the idea of this is to sort of think about, I posted right before class in the group this website that I really like called Textastrophe, which is this guy who, if you post your phone number on Craigslist offering a service or something, he basically just constantly asking you all these weird questions, screen captures it. It's very, very funny. He's a little bit more on the like barbed end of things. What I want to do is, because I don't want to fuck with anybody who works at Citibank or ruin their night, that's not my goal, is to create a situation that's slightly confusing for them, but probably a lot more enjoyable, honestly, than the other assholes who are calling you to scream at them, which is probably most of the calls that they field. So we want to try to get the person into a conversation, have a little bit of dialogue going on, and then you have to politely excuse yourself after 3 minutes because something has come up. A really good thing is my son just walked into the room. But, okay, so I'll go first. And when you go, if everybody can just, yeah, you can like not maybe make any noise would be great. Because they're going to be onto it. But, okay, so.
Well, tell them you're in a private place and you call them.
Yeah, well, I usually use the excuse that okay, so I'm going to call through, I'm going to have a quick conversation with this person, and then I'm going to hang up. Is this going armed? Yep. It's recording? Okay. Cool. So, and I've set it this way so that you don't have to look at everybody if you want to make a call to Citibank. You can just look at Joe. Okay. Is it coming out of here? Yeah.
Welcome to Citibank. To ensure quality service, your call may be monitored and recorded. If you... Sorry, I didn't get that. Name menu, so I can get you to the right... Sure, so that I can find the right person to help you. Please hold while I transfer you to the next available financial associate. To ensure quality service, your call may be monitored or recorded.
Hi, welcome to Citibank. My name is Lavender. May I have your first and last name, please?
Hi, Lavender? Was that correct?
Yes.
Oh, hi. Yeah, my name is Sean.
Yes, sir.
It's S-E-A-N. Carney, C-A-R-N-E-Y.
Hi, Mr. Sarno. How are you doing tonight?
I'm medium.
Uh-huh. I'm hoping that I can help you with your concern today to make you feel better.
Yeah. I have a MasterCard.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a MasterCard with you guys. And I'm just curious, I'm gonna rent a car. I'm going to Boca Raton. Boca.
There.
still. I'm not sure how it's. I'm not.
If I can. Okay.
Maybe we could.
So you do don't have the.
I guess larger question. Car rental.
That handles that different. Call or they can that color for your account. Go ahead.
I use my.
That's the whole. You please.
Boca Raton.
You can definitely start in the state. Recommend that.
That's good. I feel confident in my coverage. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a nice night, Lavender. You were wonderful. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
That was a very pungent 3 minutes.
Welcome to Citibank. To ensure quality service, your call may be monitored and recorded. I do get please hold while I transfer you to the next available financial associate. To ensure quality service, your call may be monitored or recorded.
Welcome to Citibank. My name is Carl. Can I have your first and last name?
Hi, Carl. I'm Lauren. Early in the morning, early to rise, early to sleep, late to rise. Lauren Early.
I do apologize. I don't understand.
Early to rise makes a good man strong. Lauren Early. EARLY. Lauren Early.
You're calling for an individual working for Citibank?
Well, I need a credit card for Lauren Early. Carl. Oh, Carl.
I apologize. you already have a
I've just pictured terrible Carl good if you awful day. No, Carl.
I think
Representative. Representative. Representative.
Sorry, I didn't get that. Sure. So that I can find the right person to help you, please hold while I transfer you to the next available financial associate. To ensure quality service, your call may be monitored or recorded.
Welcome to Citibank. My name is Jason. May I please have your first and last name?
Hi, is this Citibank?
Yes, this is Citibank customer service for deposit accounts, debit cards and checking accounts.
Oh, no, I'm calling. I almost won the lottery today. So I was calling because it's my birthday and I just turned 18 to buy a ticket. And I almost won today, so I wanted to call about that.
Oh, happy birthday to you.
Thank you so much.
And congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a really
You're
big
welcome.
deal. Yeah, it's been a big deal. Big day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how may I help you today?
Well, I bought my ticket at a Wawa. And at a Wawa, do you know what Wawa is? Wawa is?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm not.
It's a.
Do you have a debit card number or?
No, because I just turned 18, so I don't have it yet. And I wanted to, about like, say I win the lottery, and I had a debit amount, would that matter?
I'm sorry? You're so muffled.
I'll talk. So today's my birthday, and I just bought a lottery at a Wawa. I want to open the debit.
We're pretty.
I talk.
I'm sorry?
I said I like you. I feel like.
However, can handle that, and I'm not trained.
Well, I'm not sure I really want to apply.
Speaking with a
If you're not comfortable in speaking with a different person, you also have a different, you have another channel where you can apply your account through our
Wait,
website at
I actually,
mycity.com.
wait, I think my mom's throwing me a surprise party, so I have to go.
I'm sorry?
I said I think my mom's throwing me a surprise party, so I think I have to go now.
Sorry, I can
Suzanne?
barely understand you. You sound muffling to me.
Suzanne, I have to go.
I'm sorry?
I said I have to go now.
Oh, okay. So it's my pleasure in providing the options on how you can apply an account with Citibank. Have I answered all of your concerns for today?
Oh my god, so many concerns, all filled. Thank you.
You're very welcome. You're for calling Citibank. You have a wonderful day.
A wonderful
Goodbye
birthday.
now.
Bye.
Welcome, ensure quality and more than didn't get that. So that you to the next.
Hear that?
Yeah. With your card and hear about that.
Are taken, and so
Folder. We are. What did Joan? I don't care.
Sure. To help you, you can ask online. Please hold while call monitored or recorded. Ensure will be monitored. Hold for.
You dial the number. Go
Thank
ahead.
you.
Yeah, that's great. Free to do it.
Right, yeah.
May be monitored.
Hi, welcome. Erica.
Okay, can you you know, like deal with, you know, 'cause time it's in a bit of
So I'll be glad.
I can't debit card, you know. For me, so it's cold.
Thank you
so much. You just have one. You're like, oh.
It's like a. That's a great. I'm not really the credit.
It's okay. Like, yeah.
Menu. The next.
Andrea? Really nice.
Sorry.
Oh no, I'm super people.
I know you were saying I can't buy stuff like that. Like next to Kanye, can't say James.
Have
the other
with the my government.
You guys to the first. Did you?
in the Philippines right now.
And what? My son just go.
Yeah.
But I just want to know, like, all right.
I'm sorry, you want to know?
Is y'all niggas hiring?
I'm sorry, sir, I did not get that one.
I was wondering if that's a response.
Thank you.
Next week. Against the wall, please. Against, oh, you want them just lean against the wall?
Yeah.
Even easier. Cool.
Okay.